This move changes the Browns' quarterback landscape in a hurry, and not in a quiet, procedural way. Trading Kenny Pickett for a fifth-round pick and cutting Tyler Huntley leaves Cleveland with Joe Flacco as the clear starter and two rookies, Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, behind him. On paper, that looks tidy. Veteran starter plus two developmental backups. In practice, it raises more questions than answers about evaluation, roster construction, and what the Browns actually want from their quarterback room this season. First, the raw facts matter. Pickett is a former first-round pick with starting experience and enough upside that the Raiders will happily add him as emergency depth after Aiden O'Connell's wrist injury. A fifth-round pick in return is modest, but it's obvious Cleveland prioritized clearing space and simplifying the room over chasing optimal return. Releasing Huntley further cements that message. The Browns wanted fewer bodies, clearer lines of succession, and perhaps a path for the rookies to develop without veteran logjam. That makes sense from a managerial standpoint. If you believe Flacco can give you a steady baseline and you have two young prospects whose long-term value you want to evaluate, trimming the chaos helps. But the optics are brutal for Shedeur Sanders specifically. He arrived after a very public draft slide, lit up the preseason in his first outing, then suffered an oblique and, per this account, endured a brutal second display, 5 sacks on 6 attempts. Being yanked for the final drive and doing so visibly unhappy makes Sanders' position precarious. When a rookie's public narrative is already didn't belong where he was drafted, a high-profile meltdown like this accelerates the talk about cutting or trading him. Why Cleveland might still keep Sanders. Investment isn't always financial. Even if Sanders was a fifth-round pick, his name recognition and potential upside carry intangible value, marketability, fan interest, and the possibility he outperforms his draft slot. Teams don't always sell that short. Developmental runway. A rookie QB coming from college typically needs coaching, reps, and confidence. Flacco behind center gives the Browns a low-pressure environment to let Gabriel and Sanders grow. Keeping both on the roster preserves options in case of injury or poor performance. Trade market won't be rich. If the Browns tried to flip Sanders for meaningful draft capital today, they'd probably find only marginal offers. That reduces the incentive to move him for pennies. Why Cleveland might move on. The performance calculus is brutal in August. A rookie who looks overwhelmed, getting sacked repeatedly, making poor reads, raises real concerns about readiness. Coaches hate one-off disasters because they can reflect a lack of fundamentals. Roster economics and needs. The NFL's 53-man reality forces choices. If the Browns want more rookie help at other positions or veteran depth in a shaky defense, cutting a quarterback who isn't yet a clear asset is a fast way to free a spot. Locker room and buy-in. Sanders' visible disappointment after being replaced could be framed as passion or as inability to accept a role. Coaching staffs prefer players who internalize their progress plan rather than publicly signaling impatience. What this trade means for Dillon Gabriel. Gabriel benefits in the short term. Fewer competitors mean clearer reps and a better shot at being QB2 once everyone is healthy. He's already started a preseason game, and the Browns reportedly invested a higher draft pick in him. If Gabriel shows steady growth, the Browns may favor his developmental arc over Sanders. That's simple roster math, what it means for Pickett and the Raiders. For Pickett, this is opportunity. He lands in a room where he can compete for QB1 in the event of further injuries or show he's a reliable veteran backup, a role with demand around the league. For Cleveland, the minimal return neutralizes Pickett's exit from a pure value standpoint, but it buys roster clarity. Bigger picture franchise implications. This sequence exposes a perennial NFL tension. Do you maximize short-term stability with veterans, Flacco, or do you prioritize long-term upside with a rookie, Sanders? Cleveland seems to be choosing the former for 2025. That approach makes sense if the organization expects to compete now or prioritizes steady play while evaluating younger QBs on practice reps and in controlled situations. But it risks alienating a fan base that expected Sanders' slide to end in fast promotion, not marginalization. Practical advice and likely next steps. For the Browns, if they truly believe Sanders is a long-term asset, they should create a development plan publicly and privately. Define practice reps, mentorship from Flacco, targeted coaching on pocket awareness and footwork, and a timeline for when he'll be given meaningful snaps. If they don't, they should try to trade him while there's still buzz. Waiting increases the chance he clears waivers and lands on someone else's practice squad. For Sanders, this is a career fork. How he responds in the next 72 hours matters as much as what happened on the field. Rehab fully, be the consummate pro in meetings, absorb Flacco's process, and show coaches he can handle the bumps. Public whining or bad body language will shortcut patience. Professionalism and improvement will buy it. For fans and observers, emotions will run hot. The narrative of a fifth-round star being disrespected is juicy. Reality is messier. The NFL evaluates by film and availability. A rookie who implodes in a critical preseason moment has to rebuild trust on the practice field. That's doable, but not automatic. Bottom line, trading Pickett signals Cleveland's move to simplify and commit to a clear starter. It also puts the spotlight squarely on Sanders and Gabriel. If Sanders truly is the quarterback many believed he could be, this moment will be a bump in the road he overcomes. If not, the Browns will have made a pragmatic roster decision and moved on, and Sanders' next chapter will begin elsewhere. Either way, the Browns' handling of his development over the next few weeks will answer whether this was a coaching problem, a rookie's growing pains, or the start of a longer separation. The Browns have trimmed and shifted their QB room. Cleveland has traded Kenny Pickett to the Las Vegas Raiders for a fifth-round pick, a move reported by Adam Schefter and carried by ESPN. X, formerly Twitter. That deal comes as the Raiders needed depth after Aiden O'Connell suffered a fractured wrist, and it leaves the Browns' quarterback group thinner, especially after the team officially terminated Tyler Huntley's contract as part of roster cuts. ESPN.com. All of this matters because Shedeur Sanders, the rookie who flashed in Cleveland's preseason opener, had a brutal follow-up outing against the Rams. Sanders completed just 3 of 6 passes for 14 yards and was sacked 5 times in the game. Coach Kevin Stefanski pulled him in favor of Tyler Huntley late in the contest. ESPN.com. That collapse came after an encouraging debut in which Sanders went 14 for 23 for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Panthers, so the swing in optics has been dramatic. AP News. Sanders was visibly frustrated after being replaced, telling reporters that in the heat of the battle, you want to be that alpha, and that those final drive moments are what players crave, comments widely reported in the aftermath. Yahoo Sports, rosterly, the moves arguably help clarify Cleveland's short-term plan. Joe Flacco remains the starter, and with Pickett gone and Huntley off the books, Dillon Gabriel and Sanders slot more clearly into backup development roles. For Sanders, the task is obvious. Rebound in practice, show he can handle pressure and ball security, and prove the preseason nightmare was a hiccup, not the season's headline. ESPN.com. In short, Pickett's departure and Huntley's release simplify the Browns' depth chart, but raise the stakes for Sanders. His roster spot may be safe for now, but his immediate trajectory will depend on how quickly he answers the questions raised by that Rams performance. Cleveland Browns.